there. All right, we are live. So first I want to say, man, for everybody that's watching this on demand right now that's not watching this live, you're probably thinking, dang it, I missed a live show. You guys got to ring that notification bell right now so you get to hit it right when we go live. But now we're starting to get the notification gang in here. What is up, everybody? We're back with another live stream. I'm back with my boy James Boozes. What's going on, man?
How much are you doing?
Good. We're about to talk some Jaguars, of course, draft stuff. And if you guys aren't already, definitely go hit his Twitter link in the description down below. But you ready for this coming draft, man?
Oh man, it's gonna be a good time. I'm excited. I'm excited. I don't want to be excited because I feel like every draft, at least half of the drafts, and since I've been a fan, have not exactly gone the way that either myself or most fans want. So I'm intrigued.
It's funny because a lot of I even put this on Twitter. Everyone's like, "Oh, we can't draft a Florida player round one because none of them work out." And they're like, "Oh, only one Florida player has worked out in like 5 picks." I'm like, you know what? We only usually hit on one first round pick every 5 years.
What difference does it make?
That's generally how it happens.
That's not true because I think we've taken 6 players from the state of Florida in our franchise's history, and 3 of them were half decent, and the other 3 ended up not being that great. So I mean, it's like we're 50% right now. So it's really hard. It just so happens that the last 3 before Ramsey, unfortunately, I mean, I'll always be a Blake fan, but Blake didn't pan out the way we wanted.
Yeah.
And then I think the big one was the defensive end from Florida, Derrick Henry. Derrick Harvey is the one that I think hurt everybody. Yeah. So
Derrick Henry hurts us, and Derrick Harvey also hurt us. But we got a $2 donation from Central Coast Climber, aka Christopher Columbus. He posts like rock climbing videos, which is pretty cool. You know, he's always hitting up the stream. So appreciate that donation. But let's go and get some shout outs up in here. Let's see who's all in here. Nathaniel was first in here. Teal Town. Marie Bryn, It's Risk, Joe John, Teal City Sports, Anish, he's always up in here. David Bryan, what's good, man? He's up in every stream. Bo Thornton, what's going on, guys? Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about, a couple housekeeping stuff with the Jaguars. This is one topic I never really talked about on the channel just because I really didn't feel like making a video about it. But we're going to talk about Leonard Fournette. Now, Leonard Fournette was arrested a couple weeks ago. And no, he didn't pull a Reuben Foster and, beat his wife. He didn't pull a Tyreek Hill and break his son's arm. He gets an unpaid speeding ticket and for an unpaid $200 fine, and he gets put in cuffs over it. What do you think about that?
It was speechless. I just remember watching the videos on Twitter as they come up and the photos of Fournette in cuffs, and there's like 9 cop cars surrounding him.
It was ridiculous.
Like he was O.J. Simpson running to Mexico.
He had a helicopter overhead.
It's freaking ridiculous.
Oh my god!
It was one of those that like words escape me. It's so stupid, and I'm not. And I get it. He is immature. He's not shown the growth that we could have wanted from a star franchise cornerstone type player. But it's a freaking unpaid parking ticket.
Yeah,
I mean, Jacksonville PD needs to be better than that.
And like one thing with Leonard Fournette one thing that we know about him is he's not a bad dude. He's just like Dante Fowler. They're not bad dudes. He just lacks maturity. And really with this whole unpaid speeding ticket, the person I almost blame is like the agent or somebody. Shouldn't somebody know about this? Yeah. And because for example, his agent, first of all, if you're an agent for a player that's going to be picked in the top 10, you're basically giving free money because you're not negotiating contracts. You're literally slated to take that money. So, I mean, if I'm a player, I wait till I hit free agency to actually get an agent. So I want to give a percentage of my paycheck toward that guy. But really, shouldn't with Leonard Fournette, I feel like with him, he needs people looking out for him. You know what I mean? He needs a coach. That's one reason why they hired their running back coach right now. Mm-hmm. He was a former LSU running back. He's been around that area. I feel like that was a big time, Leonard Fournette hire with that in mind. I also wanted them to get a Frank Gore or somebody in the running back room, a peer to really for him to look after, kind of like Maurice Jones-Drew did with Fred Taylor. And we don't really have that. I really wanted to, get a guy like Frank Gore, but we wound up not doing that. And I think he needs certain influences. And really, I think somebody needs to realize, dude, you got an unpaid ticket.
Yeah.
You got to go pay this. Somebody has to do that. But
yeah, it's like you said, it's completely a maturity thing. He's not and granted, do you expect him to be a mature individual? He's like what, 22, 23? Yeah. I mean, I know that when I was 22 or 23, I was still a moron college senior, not doing what I was supposed to do. So, I mean, I get it. I mean, I've been pulled over for something very similar. I had an unpaid ticket that I got in Sanford, and I just remember I was back in my hometown, Palm Coast, after college. I didn't pay it for 2 years. I unknowingly had my license suspended. I got pulled over because my tag light was out. And they did the same thing. They put me in cuffs. They put me in the back of the car, and they eventually let me go. And they're like, "Hey, we realize that it's something stupid. You're gonna got to go to court for this." It was all thrown out. It all was. So I've been exactly in his situation. The only difference is it's Jacksonville, where it's one of the higher. It has one of the higher rates of homicide in the nation, and that's what you're going to have a helicopter, and you're going to have cops like flocking to.
Yeah.
Over a high profile athlete with a speeding ticket. That's what gets the news, not people murdering each other or police brutality. I mean, that kind of stuff. It just it's irritating, but that's what we're going to put focus on in the news.
Yeah, and I'd hate to put the whole race car and everything, but man, with this, if you put Nick Foles in that situation, I don't think that there's going to be 4 cop cars. There's going to be 3 guys escorting to a cop car. I don't think there's going to be a helicopter overhead. I mean, I think it's just frustrating just because of all players for this to happen to.
Yeah.
Of course, it has to be Leonard Fournette. A guy that didn't have the great.
Why couldn't it be Dwayne Gratz?
Yeah.
With his drunk trying to pay with gum.
Yeah, trying to pay with gum. That was awesome.
That was actually hysterical. I thought that was great.
There was that one. There was Denard Robinson driving into the lake.
Yeah.
There was obviously Dante Fowler throwing the dude's groceries, and there have been some kind of interesting arrests. But with this, as long as he's out there working hard, and though he's out in Louisiana, with him though, we're in such wait and see mode with him because. With Leonard Fournette, man, what does scare me is that I think so much of this season, of our success this season, is going to be how well he plays, which is scary because we don't know, because we won't know. We can sit here and project. We say, hey, I think Leonard Fournette's doing this. I think Leonard Fournette's doing that. But we're going to know what he's been doing, when September 8th or whenever the first game hits and, they hit the field, and we'll actually see, has this guy been working hard, or is he going to come in out of shape? Is he going to immediately tweak a hamstring in the first half? What's going to happen? Yeah. So I don't know. But, yeah, I just kind of wanted to briefly touch on that just because it is a topic. But we're going to move on, and that's going to talk about the whole beef between Jalen Ramsey and Tom Coughlin. Now, Tom Coughlin, at the state of the franchise, goes out there and just directly calls out Jalen Ramsey and Telvin Smith, saying, we need 100% of people to be here right now. And obviously the only 2 people that weren't there were Telvin Smith and Jalen Ramsey. And then Jalen Ramsey's agent winds up taking to Twitter talking about the situation. And then Jalen Ramsey winds up speaking out about it. Now, what do you think OTAs and the offseason activities or whatever that are optional, do you think that's something that's important for the players to be there?
See, I'm a mixed bag because as a football coach, I understand where the organization comes from, and I understand that they want that because that's a time where you're going to build team chemistry, you're going to build camaraderie. You're sacrificing just like your brothers around you, and that builds that kind of brotherhood that makes a team good. At the same time, according to the CBA, you do not have to be there. And if if an All-Pro and Pro Bowl cornerback decides that he wants to be with his family and do something that he's done every offseason since we've drafted him, with working out with his father, that's going to get him in shape and do what he needs to do. If that's what he wants to do, I'm okay with it. Because, he's got the play to back it now. Telvin Smith is a different story. Telvin Smith, to me, is on the chopping block.
Yeah.
Man missed more than twice as many tackles than any other player on this team last season. He has no excuse not to show up.
Yeah, he was a coverage liability too.
Yep.
And then I also thought his attitude was a little weird last offseason, just because they had lost to some team. I think they lost to the Chiefs. He's just guys, we good, man. He was laughing it off, and then it just didn't seem like he was committed at all. And then you look at him, and then he just had a horrible year, and this comes right after getting a paycheck. So it really drives me nuts. And but with this whole thing is with Tom Coughlin kind of calling out Jalen Ramsey, it just worries me because Jalen Ramsey is a guy that I really want to see be there for our whole entire franchise's history. But I don't want Tom Coughlin's 1930s ass gonna drive him out of there, and just because of his, no nonsense kind of thing. Vach Lombardi's up in the building. Oh, what's going on, Vach? He's a big film room guy on YouTube.
Oh, nice.
But yeah, like I want Jalen Ramsey to be there for his whole career. And just Tom Coughlin's mouth, it worries me, man.
It really does. I think, and here's the thing is, what I would do as an organization is ask myself, who's going to be here longer? I don't think Tom Coughlin has more than maybe another year or two left in his tank to do anything. The man is getting close to 80. He, like you said, he's kind. I mean, I have an old school mentality in a lot of ways of how I work at my own job, how I treat football practice and everything like that. But with in the same regard, I understand that everything evolves, and teams, organizations, leagues, the sport evolves. And Coughlin is stuck in the prehistoric age, and he refuses to cater or to change his mindset, which is unfortunate because it's going to do exactly that. You're going to have great talent that's going to disappear because they don't want to be there. And that's, I mean, I hope that doesn't happen. I'd love for Ramsey to be there for the next 15 years, but it is what it is.
Yeah, then like I just think if you're not going to show up, let's have an excuse. Like Telvin Smith isn't even getting back to the coaches.
Yeah,
like they're trying to contact him and he's not getting back. Like if you're going to miss, at least let him know what's going on. I mean,
that's just, you got to communicate.
Yeah,
that's the big thing.
Like,
everyone knows what Ramsey's doing.
Yeah,
and then that's what also pisses me off the most about Coughlin is it wasn't an issue last year. Last year he did what I didn't see one report about him getting angry that he wasn't coming, that he was in Tennessee doing his thing with his family, and now suddenly it's a problem. I don't know.
And Jalen Ramsey is just so driven to be not only the best cornerback in the NFL, not only a Hall of Famer, he wants to be the best cornerback ever. And he is so driven. I mean, this dude plays injured. This dude is so passionate about this game. Like, just with Ramsey, like, I love what he does. I love him as a player. Some of his some things that he does like is a little bit petty. Like I don't like how he puts on Twitter like, "Oh, y'all gonna miss me when I'm gone," and just leave it up for interpretation like that. There's some little like petty shit about like that I don't like about him. But I mean, all in all, like him on the field, I love him. I love the mouthpiece dangling and just seeing him talk to players. He's got the swag
that this team needs.
Yeah.
No, I 100% agree with you.
Yeah. So and just when it comes to the optional stuff, I'm so mixed emotion about it because I can understand when they're not there, but also when I see guys like, Calais Campbell there, like I always feel like, look, Calais Campbell's there. If he's there, nobody else should have an excuse to not be there. Mm-hmm. And I just think if you're a leader, you should generally be there. But honestly, this whole question, I leave it up to the players. Like, what do the players think?
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
If you sat down with Calais and, you brought Fournette in, if you took your team leaders and asked, how do you feel about Ramsey not be here? And they were like, we're pissed. He needs to be here just like us. 100% I'd be calling him out and being like, your teammates are demanding you to be here. If they all are just like, no, we're good. Like, we know he's going to show up and be all right, which I'm pretty sure that's the attitude that they have. Then really, who gives a crap? Like, just leave it be.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have a problem, and now you're fabricating a problem.
Yeah.
And that is a problem. Like there was nothing there before. You are trying for some. I mean, in the sense you're trying to I understand he wants to have this certain type of culture. I get it. He wants to form that, but you're creating, I think, more problems and issues, and you need to trying to formulate that. And that's gonna be, when we let one of the greatest cornerbacks of all time walk out our door, and God forbid he goes, to someone else in our division, then we're gonna have some headaches, and it's gonna be. I think it'll be a black mark on our franchise for 50 years if that's the case.
Yeah. Then I mean, you look at it, and every single GM, front office guy, head coach, they all think what Tom Coughlin thinks. They all want everyone to be there, but all of them are smart enough to keep their mouths shut. It's like, come on, Grandpa, you can't say that. Yeah. It's like your grandpa with like dementia that's out here like saying dumb shit. Be like, you can't say that. Yeah. You can't say that. But
he's saying the racist crap, and you're like, no.
Yeah,
it's 2019. You can't be. Come on, Grandpa. But then at the same time, you look at him, because that's how I look at Coughlin. Is I look at Coughlin as that old. I'm just like, oh yeah, Coughlin, get off his yard. That's how I look at him now. I honestly, if anything, I can't take him seriously.
Yeah.
Just because the way he carries himself, and I was all stoked when we first hired him. I really was. I was pumped. Yeah. And then just seeing the clash between ideologies, and I understand that he won 2 Super Bowls with that. It's an amazing accomplishment, but. What did he do in the last 8 years? What has New York done since since that one run in 2011?
Yeah,
absolutely nothing. So I mean, it's like at a certain point when when things turn the corner and the game is changing the way it is, you kind of have to adapt with it or you die. It's adapt or die. And he's chosen to be very, very headstrong in his approach, which I can commend. I appreciate that. I get it. But at the same time, in a professional league, you have to be a little bit wiser than that.
Yeah. And then, he came in and, really the thing that he has to show was just the really strong 2017 free agency class. But other than that, man, the 2017 NFL draft is just riddled with question marks.
Mm-hmm.
You draft Leonard Fournette at number 4. Cam Robinson, I know a lot of people think he was good, but he wasn't really looking all that good before he tore his ACL.
People thought he was good.
A lot of experts and everything, buddy, is just pinning him in as being great. But he was decent his rookie year, but obviously he had some stuff to work on. Then he comes back his second year and he's out of shape. He was really bad in the preseason, and then he tears his ACL second game of the season. So there really wasn't much to expose out of him, but he wasn't very good. DeJuan Smoot, our 3rd round pick, he's been a bust so far.
Mm-hmm.
D.D. Westbrook in the 4th round, and he's been the best, player out of there. D.D. Westbrook, I really like him. He definitely gives us some flexibility on this upcoming draft because he can play slot, he can play outside, he can do a lot of stuff. Then 2018, obviously Taven Bryan, they were playing him, which is so stupid. Why were they playing him at defensive end half the year last year?
I think they were trying to force it. They were trying to force a scheme that just wasn't going to work, and a lot of people. That's I think a coach killer is a lot of coaches have this idea of this is how we're going to use these players. You should be adapting your scheme to the players, not vice versa. They were taking him and they were shoving him at big end because he's an athletic kid. He really is. He's one of the more athletic defensive linemen we've seen in many drafts. They call him the Wyoming Wild Man for a reason. He is a monster, and so the fact that happened the way I was frustrated watching him because they put him in the 3 technique the last couple games of the season, and he just has an explosion of phenomenal play after phenomenal play.
Yeah, and he was run stuffing and everything.
Exactly. He's a piercing 3 technique. That's all he's ever played his entire career. So for you to decide that you're going to take this kid that, granted he was a one-trick pony, but he was very good with that one trick. Just let him keep doing it. Some people just overthink themselves. They think we're going to take this player who's got, great talent at his one job, and then we're going to try to mold him in something different. No, let him do that one job. We got rid of Malik Jackson. That was a nice cap relief. I liked Malik. I think he can be exactly what Malik was based on his talent and his skill level, and we'll see how he, develops the next offseason. I'm hoping for great things from him. I really am. We need him to be that.
Yeah, because you put him at the big defensive end spot, and he's just not that great in space.
No, absolutely
if you put Marcel Darius there, you think he's going to be, out there doing his thing? They were definitely trying to force an issue, and then I don't know if they were trying to make up for the whole DeJuan Smoot thing because, DeJuan Smoot was a healthy scratch to start the year. He didn't actually start playing until they traded Dante Fowler Jr., and that's when DeJuan Smoot kind of came in there and started playing. But, I don't know if they were trying to test things out like that, but I don't know. But, we're going to go ahead and transition over. We're going to go into kind of positional needs. We're going to discuss a position. We're going to say, do they need top-end starting talent? Do they need more depth? And what they had to do in that. And I appreciate everyone over in the chat. I am checking out what you guys are saying, so don't think I'm ignoring y'all, but we're just kind of having a little bit of dialogue. So we're going to start on the offensive side of the ball because offense sells tickets. So how about the quarterback spot, man? We obviously have Nick Foles. We have Cody Kessler, and then we signed some dude from FAU.
Not FAU, from FIU.
FIU. Do you remember his name?
Oh God.
If someone remember
McDowell?
Yeah, he's
something.
He's
McDowell?
number 2. Someone let us know in the chat. Help us out. Who's the? I think it's Alex McDowell or something like that.
Yeah, I watched him play. He's a decent football player. He really is. He's athletic. He's got a good arm. I think that he could. I don't know.
Alex McGough says steel tank.
I don't think he'll ever be more than a third quarterback, maybe a backup. But you never know. Just let him develop and see what happens. He played for Seattle a little bit. He had some plays for them, and he's got a rocket arm. It's just downfield accuracy is an issue, and there's obviously lack of high end competition. Which I'm not a firm believer that you have to play in the SEC to be a good football player, but when you do play in the Sun Belt, there's a huge difference between playing in the Sun Belt and then playing in the NFL. So, but as far as quarterbacks go, is it a high-end need? Probably not, because of who we just signed. You would expect if you hand someone $80 million that you would not have that need at that position. I'm under the firm belief, and I said this with you a while ago, that I think it was last year's when we talked about the draft last year, and that's you should draft a quarterback every year. And whether it's in the first round or in the 7th round, you should always bring someone in to develop and see what happens, because we've got great quarterbacks that are drafted mid-round, like a Russell Wilson or a Kirk Cousins. And you've got great quarterbacks in the back end. You've got your obviously first-round picks. You never know who you get. So there's nothing wrong with drafting. Is it a need? I would not invest my 7th overall pick in a quarterback. I mean, maybe if we didn't pick Foles, I would be all about drafting Haskins or seeing if a Murray or something like that keeps slipping. But since we did invest a lot of money into a high-profile, player, I don't think we should be putting too much emphasis on quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, we gave Nick Foles enough money, and he's 4 years and Super Bowl champion. I mean, he deserves a chance. He does. He deserves to be able to, come in and not have a guy number 7. So if game 1 he plays okay, game 2 he throws a couple picks where the fans aren't chanting like Haskins or Murray. Because that creates such a distraction. And when you draft that number 7 guy, Nick Foles automatically thinks, well, these guys have no faith in me. These guys don't trust me.
Which obviously we do, since we gave him as much. We gave him $53 million guaranteed or something like that.
Yeah,
that should be everything that says we have faith that you can do what you're going to do. I remember reading in the chat, someone asked, "Can Nick Foles be the franchise quarterback?" It depends on what you define as franchise. Is he going to be the quarterback for the next 10 years? Obviously not, because he's already 30. Maybe he has another.
Nowadays, if this is a from the passer,
you could play
Brady,
for a while.
You can play.
No, I think that as a prime top end quarterback, maybe he has another 5 years.
Yeah.
So do we consider a franchise quarterback somebody? I consider a franchise quarterback or some a high profile quarterback someone that can take your team to the next level. If he gets us back into the playoffs, then yes, I would consider him franchise caliber in that regard. Can he take us into a deep run? I think he can. He's a solid quarterback. I mean, it's time will tell. I mean, I think the last time we talked about Foles, we were talking how the Jeff Fisher factor kind of screwed him over for the Rams. Fisher is a quarterback killer.
Yeah,
he was great with Chip
Eagles,
Kelly and the Eagles, and he was great when Carson Wentz goes down.
And then he went to the Chiefs, didn't really have much of a chance.
No, exactly.
I think he started 1 or 2 games, ironically enough, against the Jaguars. Yeah. But
he's thrown more touchdowns than picks, a lot more touchdowns than picks, surprisingly. I mean, he had that 1 year where he threw 2 into 20.
I know, 27 to 2. That's
a ridiculous statistic.
That's outrageous.
So I think that he can be a pretty solid quarterback for a while. I mean, he doesn't turn the ball over. I think which is going to lead into our next couple topics. We need to give him things.
Yeah.
And there are some needs that he is clearly in the media, not necessarily demanding, but expressing his desire of what I think I need to be successful. So
Nick Foles, I mean, just his numbers show that if you can build an offense around him and build around his strengths, he can be really good. He's obviously Chip Kelly, 27 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. That's phenomenal. When he was on the Eagles, at first, after the Carson Wentz injury, he wasn't all that great. And then after that, they really took their bye week in the playoffs to study him, find out what he does well. And then we all saw what he did in the, playoffs with that Super Bowl run. I mean, even last season when he won the playoffs, I mean, he beat the Bears. And then the second game against the Saints, I mean, he put that ball in Alshon Jeffrey's hand. It just, I guess there was a little too much mustard on it. And He got tipped up for an interception. But, I mean, he was on his way. He was, 15 yards away from the NFC Championship game. So, and who knows what they could have done after that. I mean, he elevated the Eagles once he got in there. After the Eagles started off the season not very good. They were looking like big-time Super Bowl hangover. They looked halfway through the year. They did not look like they were going to, make it to the playoffs. I mean, I think they had the same record when the Jags played off against them in, Philadelphia. Of course, they won, and then we went like that. We went 2 different directions. But, yeah, I mean, with the quarterback position, though, I don't think they'll draft the guy in the top 3 rounds. Now, some guys that may be intriguing, maybe in the 4th round of Will Grier somehow there.
Yeah, I've seen that in mock drafts. Will Grier possibly.
Yeah, I mean, he plays in a super the West Virginia offense is just so it's all one read stuff. It's so spread open.
It's not quarterback friendly. It's a system.
Yeah,
and you just got to have a guy with an arm.
But he's made some incredible throws there. Then you also maybe in the 6th round if you want to get a Tyree Jackson, the big old dude from Buffalo.
He's a good player. I like Tyree Jackson a lot. I think that he's a very underrated quarterback, and I personally think he's going to be taken in the top 5 rounds.
You think so?
I don't think he's going to slip that far down. I think he's got a cannon. He's He's a big body. He can actually move pretty well. He has good downfield vision. He doesn't throw that many interceptions. I mean, he had a great year for that team, and I think that he's going to be a higher pick that could develop behind somebody half decent.
Yeah. Yeah, so, I mean, with the quarterback position, I mean, it's not – there could be a need for a developmental guy, but, top-end talent, we're not going to be drafting a guy to start him.
No.
If Nick Foles goes down, we're probably going to be in trouble. But, I mean, the need for backup quarterback is there just because, I mean, in the years past, we haven't really mentioned backup quarterback that much because Blake Bortles was Iron Man and he never got injured. But now, Nick Foles does have a history of injuries, so we're going to have to look out for that. But we'll move on to the second position, and that is running back. Obviously, we have Leonard Fournette. He's going to be our running back 1, but there's a bunch of different guys for running back 2. I mean, there's Alfred Blue, like Dimitri Flowers, there's Benny Cunningham. There's just kind of a bunch of names.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on the running back position?
I think Alfred Blue is a pretty solid pickup because we've watched him twice a year, every year in Houston for the last 4 or 5 seasons. So he's a solid running back, and I believe he actually was the running back that played at LSU before Fournette came here.
Yeah, Fournette took his job.
Yeah, so there's a bit of a connection there, which I think is pretty cool. And I think he's a solid running back. After him, it gets pretty bleak because we don't really have anybody. I think there's definite need to get a good, a decent either switch up back or just continue to add depth. I really like Montgomery.
Yeah, Montgomery's nice.
He's a really good back. I like the kid from Alabama.
Josh Jacobs gonna be gone soon. He's like a pick 20 to 40. I feel like.
I think so. Yeah, I think he'll go possibly in the upper second round. It depends. I mean, running back every year, I feel like running backs slowly lose value, and then you'll have these random years like where Ezekiel Elliott or or Fournette, Barkley. There's that one back, and then it will kind of for the next couple of years from here on out. You'll probably see for the next 2 or 3 until another stud back comes in. There won't be anybody maybe even in that top half of the first round.
Yeah.
But I definitely think we need some depth pretty badly because if Fournette goes down, it's going to be well, look what happened to our season last year. Fournette went down and there was nobody. We traded to get that back from Cleveland, the guy who played for
Carlos Hyde.
Yeah, Carlos Hyde, former Ohio State Buckeye. And I mean, I think we should have given Hyde more carries. I personally always really liked Hyde. I always had him on fantasy teams, and he always got me some decent points. But I saw somebody mention we need to re-sign Grant, but that Liz Frank injury is terrifying.
I think
it's a running back killer.
I think his career might be over. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I mean, he might come. First of all, it's an injury that takes a long time to recover, and I mean, with his speed, he's a little dude. I mean, it'll be hard to recover from that. I know a lot of people are talking Darrell Henderson.
Yeah,
us as UCF guys, we know how much of a killer he can be.
He's
oh my god, that dude! I remember the AAC championship game, and that dude had I think over 200 yards in the first half.
Oh yeah,
the dude was outrageous.
He is a definition of stud.
Yeah, and then whole thing,
he should be the number 1 running back taken, in my opinion.
See, with Darrell Henderson, I don't know if that'd be the best fit for the Jaguars, just because I think Leonard Fournette and Darrell Henderson are
very similar styles, exactly.
Like you said earlier, I like Montgomery. The dude from FAU. Is probably getting Singletary.
Singletary is a great back as well.
Yeah, he's probably gonna be the second guy out the board. I don't know if he's gonna last to the 3rd round. So I mean, but Montgomery, I think that'd be a good guy. If he's available in rounds 3 or 4, because we got 2 3rd-round picks. So
yeah.
I think we definitely need a running back number 2, a guy that's a little bit different from Fournette, also a guy that could carry could be the bell cow for a few games because obviously. We know so far we can't depend on Leonard Fournette to stay healthy.
Unfortunately not. Which that's the thing that sucks about when you invest a fourth overall pick into somebody is availability is your best trait, and he has not been available.
Yeah,
which is unfortunate.
I mean, it's pretty bad when you look at the Jaguars' track record for running backs because if you look at it, 2014 they give Toby Gerhardt a deal. 2015 they draft T.J. Yell in the second round. 2016 they give Chris Ivory a big contract. 2017, they draft Leonard Fournette number 4 overall. 2018, they trade a 5th-round pick for Carlos Hyde. What do we have to show for it?
Absolutely.
Leonard Fournette, Benny Cunningham, Alfred Blue, Dimitri Flowers. I know there's probably one guy that I'm forgetting, but that's horrible.
It really is. And what sucks as I think a franchise is we were so spoiled at that position for so long, where you have a great running back in James Stewart to start out the franchise. You get a Fred Taylor who, obviously the first couple of years of his career was rocky, but was steady for us for all of the 2000s. He was a consistent producer. Then you get a Maurice Jones-Drew to pair with him and have arguably, in my opinion, the best backfield of the 2000s. And then, you get MJD who carries the franchise, literally carries him on his legs and back for 2 years. I think that's the big thing, is because we never got on track and got another back to assist him. I think that's what really derailed his career. You can't feed somebody almost, 500 carries a year and expect him to keep going and not eventually the wheels fall off. So
with the running back position, man, it'd be nice if we found an Easter egg in a 6th, 7th, or undrafted free agency, because every year there's a guy that goes really late. Just last year, Phillip Lindsay.
Yeah, Phillip Lindsay had a phenomenal year.
He was undrafted, and he was literally a top 5 in rushing yards. So, man, if we could find something like that where we don't have to invest one of our money picks in a guy like that
wasn't Terrell Davis undrafted?
I think so. I mean,
there's some who gets spoiled with running backs is freaking Denver. Yeah. Denver somehow always, and a lot of it's their running scheme. They run the inside zone a lot, and they don't have to have the best offensive lineman in the world, but they've always had solid running backs every year. Yeah,
it always seems like that. But if we can find an Easter egg like that, that'd be something else. So now we'll go on to the next position. Let's go with wide receiver. Now, with the wide receivers, I feel like we actually have a bunch of actually good players. I do like Chris Conley. I always have. D. Westbrook is obviously a good wide receiver. We'll see with Keelan Cole. Keelan Cole, I think, will have a roster spot just because one underrated thing about him is that he is able to block really well.
Yeah,
he blocks guys way downfield.
He does.
I think he's a willing guy. I just think he might need a quarterback that can actually give him the ball, give him confidence, let him go in a rhythm. You have DJ Chark, who really has all the tools. He's fast.
Yep.
He can play special teams. He can block really well. He's really good at the deep ball. I think he'll be a great wide receiver to pair with Nick Foles, just because if you look at what Nick Foles does best, he's great at dropping back and throwing it up and throwing to a spot where only that guy can get it. I think that's what DJ Chark will be able to really excel in. And obviously Marquise Lee coming back from injury. So I think we have a bunch of good wide receivers, but if we draft a wide receiver, I want them to be a superstar, a true number one type of guy. I don't want to draft just a body, we need somebody special. And this year's draft, there's obviously DK Metcalf is there, but there's really a whole mixture of who's the second best wide receiver. And, DK Metcalf might not even be the best guy. So
I don't think he's the best guy personally.
Yeah. So
I think DK Metcalf is hyped due to his one photo with his shirt off, where he does look like, Mike Tyson robot body build, and he ran a really good 40 time. But how many wide receivers, how many players have come through the draft and been a workout warrior? There's been some
John Ross, most recent one.
Yeah.
The guy, and he ran the fastest 40 of all time. And then he gets drafted number 10. And then I don't even think his stats are horrible.
Yeah.
I bet he doesn't even have 200 receiving yards.
Probably not. I don't think so either. And then, but you can say the same thing for about DK. DK didn't produce at Ole Miss, and it could be because they had scholarships that were pulled. They didn't have talent on that team. They didn't have a great quarterback after the Manning. Who's that player? He number 10. He played for Ole Miss for a couple years.
Dante Moncrief?
No. Number 10 quarterback.
Oh, I don't know.
I can't remember his name. I remember he was a solid player, and he was Jim Kelly's nephew or something like that. Something Kelly. Anyway, I don't want to digress.
Oh, the dude that went to Denver?
Is he playing for Denver? No, I don't know.
Is it the dude that got I don't know.
But he was
Shea Patterson. No.
He was a Kelly kid. I remember that because that was the big deal. He was all over Instagram as
Chad Kelly.
Oh, Chad Kelly.
Yeah, Chad Kelly. So he's a dude. He just got arrested recently.
Yeah, he was an idiot. But even before he got to Ole Miss, he had problems. I think he was one of those kids that I played for that school that was next chance to you.
He's hitting on Mia Khalifa on Twitter and stuff.
So you have a great quarterback in him, but he's gone. And so Metcalf really didn't have a quarterback. So could that contribute to the fact that his stats, were crap? Maybe. But I look at it like you need to produce. You're playing, and again, you're playing in a very, very strong league. I get it. But if you're a dominant receiver, if you're supposed to be this superstar guy who's going to come into the league and kill it, why did he have an average of 500 yards every season?
Yeah.
And he only played for 2 years. and he was gone. He came out as, I think he's leaving as a redshirt sophomore, so he didn't give himself time to really develop. We'll see. I'm worried because I think production is a big deal. I think you should have at least one productive season in college, just to show people that this is what you can do. So, I just don't think he's going to be, a top. I don't think he'll ever be a top 10 receiver in the NFL.
Yeah, and if I go and see like the Patriots draft that number 32, I'm like, oh, this guy might actually be pretty good. But if the Jaguars draft him at number 7, it would be such a Jaguar pick, and I could just so see him going down with a whole list of Matt Joneses and Justin Blackmons and all these players that just didn't pan out. And like, I just want to go with like a safe position. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So I feel like you're probably around me with the wide receivers. With we have a bunch of pretty good guys. I feel like we're actually pretty solid at that spot. But man, it'd be really nice to be able to get a real superstar.
I agree, because I think that when you look at Foles, I think our receiving core isn't that different from what he had in Philly, like you said. I think that Chark has the opportunity to be kind of like a Nelson Aguilar player. I think that the problem is that we don't have any of the next position we're going to talk about. But we obviously don't have a guy that's like an Alshon Jeffrey, who's a big-bodied receiver. You can chuck it up and say, "Go get it," and he goes and gets it. So that would be a wonderful thing to get if we can somehow find and I thought that one kid that last year, Lazard from Iowa State, I thought he could have been a player like that. 6'6", 230 pounds, runs a 4.40. Yeah, that's an opportunistic kind of receiver. But we obviously cut him in before preseason started, so before the regular season started, so there's that.
Yeah, so we'll go ahead and segue to the next position, and that, like you said, is tight end.
Yep.
We need a special tight end. We haven't had the best tight ends in Jaguars history have been like Kyle Brady, like Mercedes Lewis.
Blocker.
Yeah, like just not many good players, and we've just missed on some of these guys. I mean, we signed ASJ last year. We had Michael Rivera for a little bit. We had Julius Thomas come rob us. Like, he was just horrible. But, man, like...
I thought Julius Thomas should be arrested for theft. Like,
I don't think he should be arrested, but I think he needs to pay royalty to Peyton Manning for whatever money he makes the rest of his life. Because Peyton Manning made this man tens of millions of dollars. I mean, he just ran down the field, look up, and the ball was, like, literally just right in the breadbasket. But... everyone on my channel knows I want Hockenson at number 7.
I do too.
Like, I think that it's not only you're adding a player, but you're also making your offensive line better. I mean, He's basically like an every down type of tight end. He can do everything. I mean, he's like, when he doesn't have the ball, I mean, he blocks linebackers and defensive end like 10 yards down the field. He's also, drawing linebackers. He's drawing like safeties over to watch him. When he has the ball, he's out there. He only had like 2 drops his whole career. He has this excellent route running ability. He's got excellent balance when it comes to, when he does have the ball. And like, I just think he's incredible. And I think he helps out all around.
I 100% agree. I think that it's amazing when you look at Iowa and how they have these 2 stud tight ends. And I remember Noah Fant being like the talk of the cream of the crop. Like, everyone's talking about how Noah Fant was going to be the ish. Like, he is a top tight end in this upcoming draft, and he's going to be a killer. And then Hockenson comes in and steals the show. And it's because of everything you just said. Well, Fant is a great receiving tight end. He's basically a super big slot receiver. Hockenson does everything else. He can chip the end. He can get to a linebacker. He can hold his ground straight up, just blocking defense. He's a good, solid player. To me, he reminds me so much of Jason Witten as a player. And I think that if you can get a cornerstone like that, I mean, look what Jason Witten did for the Cowboys for 15 plus years, and he's leaving retirement to come back to keep on playing. Like, he's in I think he's in the top 10 in receiving yards in NFL history.
Yeah.
So I mean, you get a player like that can shape. You can build your future around in that regard of like, we know how important the tight end position is. Like, I mean, think about the best tight ends in the NFL and what they do for their teams. And we talked about who's more important, Travis Kelce or Tyreek Hill. And the answer to me is always going to be Travis Kelce, because he pulls those safeties that are looking at him, because he's going to beat a linebacker. Hockenson can beat a linebacker with crisp route running, and the linebackers won't be able to take him down. So a safety is going to have to help over the top, which is going to free up your outside. You're going to have corners one-on-one with receivers. And that's going to be, and people, our receiving core is crap. You let our receivers go one-on-one. You really want to guard D.D. Westbrook or Chark one-on-one with the speed they have. It's not going to happen. They're going to burn you.
Yeah.
So,
and then like one thing I always look at is like when I see tight end at number 7, everyone's like, oh, tight end isn't worth the number 7 pick. Well, like TJ Hawkinson is like one of the best tight end prospects to come out. I don't know how long. I mean, he was more hyped than like OJ Howard a few years back. And, everyone's like, oh, well, we need a right tackle so bad. Well, like when the next good right tackle is going to come out? Next year. Every year there's right tackles that come out. You know what I mean? And then like there's not talents like this at tight end that can just do it all from, pass catching, position to, being able to inline block and get down and, in your 3-point stance to get dirty with the guys. So like, man, like I think it would just be such an exciting pick, and it fills a huge hole. I could see the Jaguars taking 2 tight ends, one maybe, and, later on in the draft, just because, right now our starting tight ends are like, Jeff Swain, like James O'Shaughnessy.
Yeah, we have O'Shaughnessy. He's a decent player.
Yeah, he's decent. But
when we talk about right tackle, traditionally the tight end lines up next to the right tackle.
Yeah.
You take a generational type tight end. I can't say generation. He's not a Gronk type athlete. He's just a great, steady, constant producer who can really be a staple tight end for you for a decade. He reminds me of Todd Heap, who was a great tight end for the Ravens for the longest time. I see a lot of Kyle Rudolph on him. He has a lot of great traits that good tight ends have that are either first or second team All Pros and Pro Bowlers every year. So I think he could be a phenomenal tight end for a long time. And you pair him next to a decent right tackle, and he'll be fine.
Yeah.
He will be able to help on run plays when he blocks that, because that's where the end's going to line up. The end's going to line up between the tight end and the right tackle, and you double on him, so he's got blocking help there. And you can chip the end, and then get off into the flats or get downfield into the seam, and you'll be okay. Right tackles are not an elite, unless you have a left-handed quarterback. They're not an elite player you need to have.
Yeah. So I want to know the pulse of the chat. If you guys think Hawkinson and a tight end is worth the number 7 overall pick, type of 1. If you guys think tight end and Hawkinson is not worth the number 7 pick, type number 2. And while you guys are doing that, like I could understand the thing and to say, hey, there's a good amount of tight ends in this draft. We could potentially get an Irv Smith Jr. or like a Noah Fant in round 2. I don't know about that. Like I think if you pass up Hawkinson at number 7, I think that a bunch of guys, I think Irv Smith and Noah Fant are gone by the time you draft round 2. So
New England's taking one of those 2 in the first round.
Yeah.
Guarantee that.
Yeah. So far, all these people are typing 1. A bunch of people definitely like that.
Hawk fever.
Yeah, we got Hawk fever over here. And like that, I just feel like that'd be kind of exciting. So with that, we'll move on to the next position, and we'll just go over the whole entire offensive line. You're an offensive line coach. How do you feel about the state of our offensive line right now?
I think it's an overblown statement to say that our offensive line is god awful, because I don't think it is. I think we have a phenomenal all-pro caliber left guard. I think at left tackle, I'm worried. I would, if you were going to take someone other than Hawkinson, I would be taking a left tackle prospect like the Jonah Williams from Alabama, and you put him at left tackle, and you move Robinson to the right tackle. I think Robinson, personally, in my opinion, is a better right tackle. He's a better run blocker. Everyone talked about his run blocking ability when he was at Alabama. That's fine, but that's right tackle is where you put a run blocker, because generally, if you're going to run like a power scheme, which is what we do, and you're going to have a pulling left guard that's going to be coming through the open D gap, and you're going to have everyone blocking down, you want a masher at right tackle. And that's and because also if you're a right-handed quarterback, and I know Blindside made the whole big deal of this, left tackle is the next second most important position because he's the one blocking the blind side, which is true. So having a better pass blocker, I think, is needed there. I think we're fine at center. Granted, it's unfortunate that Linder can't stay healthy, especially when you have a guy like we had at center for the longest time with Meester, who played basically every year for 13 years.
And it's interesting with Leonard because not only does he have is he hurt every year, but he also has like an illness every year. Like he'll randomly have like a flu and mono. It's so weird.
It is weird, but I think that our biggest need, I think left guard and center are okay. I don't think we have to worry about. I think we have really good depth. I think that backup Shatley is a good swing player. I think that who's the other?
We brought back Josh Wells again.
Yes, we did. Wells is another solid swing player. I think that between those two, we're okay in depth. I think Richardson. We have a lot of, there's a lot of question marks behind him. Obviously, he didn't get to play his rookie year. I think he could be a solid player because he played great for NC State.
Yeah,
I watched his film coming into the draft. I was super excited when we got him. I think that at the right side of the line, that's a big problem. Is you have a question mark at right guard, you have a question mark at right tackle because neither of them have played like otherworldly. They've been average at best for the last several years. So I think that those are players though that you can get deeper in. And we've got a second round pick that is high, and we got 2/3. If you really want to invest in the offense, go for a right tackle and or interior players in the second and third round because you can get really good value with some great players there.
Yeah. Yeah, and like really one thing I always wonder is like would it even be better to move Linder out to right guard and play Shatley at center?
I think that's definitely. I mean, we know that Linder obviously traditionally played guard in college, and I compared Linder to Meester because a lot of people don't realize this, but Meester actually was our starting right guard for the first 2 years of his career, and then we moved him to center, and he was a staple at center for the rest of his career from there. So I think that you could do that with Linder, but at this point in his career, do you really want to? Yeah. I mean, he makes very good calls. And that's people also don't understand the intricacies of being the center. The center is the second quarterback. He makes all of the protection and slide calls for the entire.
He's the guy sitting there pointing everybody.
Yeah, exactly. He's identifying the Mike backer. He's letting the running back know who they have to pick up on a block behind him. And Meester is a player that's done a pretty good job with that, the last several years. So I think you keep him where he is if you could. I agree. Shatley is a decent center. He really is. So you could possibly do that if you're having tremendous issues on the line. But I think that I think we're going to be okay.
One of my favorite Gus Bradley sound bits is Shatley's greatest strength is his strength. He said that one time. Like they like replay that sound bit on like 1010XL a lot. It's like super funny. But yeah, we left tackle Cam Robinson. You invest in the second round pick in him. I mean, he's day one starter. You got to give him that. Left guard, obviously. Norwell. A lot of people were kind of critical of his year last year.
I was critical of him.
Yeah, and he wasn't. I thought he was good, but like obviously when he's signing that much money, he's an all-pro. You expect it to be like, you need to be 100% good. And like,
100. No, great. Yeah. I think that he had too many holding and false start calls throughout the season that made me just scratch my head. I'm like, how is he first team?
Yeah, there were some things just bad that he did, just completely missing blocks or getting like bad holding penalties. Like I know one time he got us against the Giants week 1, he completely got us out of scoring position when we had like a touchdown. But I think he's a workhorse kind of guy. I mean, he's just a blue collar type of guy. I think he notices that and he'll work hard to get back. Obviously, Linder, when he's healthy, he's good. AJ Cann, you have some room to upgrade with that position. The good thing about AJ Cann, he stays healthy. But the right tackle position, I mean, as it stands right now, there's a three-way competition between Cedric Ogbuehi, who was one of the worst offensive linemen in the NFL last year. You have Will Richardson, who is a huge question mark. The only people that really know much about him right now is, the coaching staff, the guys that are actually at practice with him. So we'll see how he does. You also have your third guy when it comes to Josh Wells. He'll be in the mix. But I think how bad people are saying our offensive line, I think it's overblown because I think when healthy, we're a pretty good team. But you got to think left tackle, left guard, center, all those guys, our best offensive linemen, were all put on the IR last year. Yeah. So that's another reason, as well as just quarterback play being horrible, Leonard Fournette, either being injured or punching somebody in the face. The wide receivers are obviously going to suffer from all that. We basically lost every single tight end we had on the IR from Niles Paul to ASJ. We lost Mercedes Lewis, obviously, in free agency. It was just bad, but,
We need depth because there's nothing wrong. I think you said, are we going to talk about what's in need and what do you need depth at? I think offensive line it's to me a top 4 need in terms of we need, you could get a starter for right tackle and possibly even get a better interior guy and move AJ down because we didn't pay him that much, which is
3 to 15.
Yeah, that's not that bad. That's average price for a mid-level guard. It really is. It's not like we didn't break the bank for him. And I thought he was going to leave to get more money.
If anything shows you how much how important like an O-line is compared to like how they're valuing running backs nowadays, like literally AJ Cann, like a below average market type of guard, got 3 years like $15 million, and you compare that to who was probably the second best running back on the market, Tevin Coleman. He got 2 years, $10 million.
Yeah,
know what I mean? It's just amazing. And just the way, they're being underdrafted in the drafts. Like Le'Veon Bell held out for like a deal where CJ Mosley and HaHa Clinton Dix are making more money than him. This is outrageous. I mean, if I had a kid who's playing running back, I mean, switch him to linebacker. You know what I mean? Switch him to like wide receivers. You're not going to make any money. You're just going to get CTE, get a bunch of concussions, and that when you're playing running back. I mean, I know it's a fun position, but but it's wild. So obviously, I think you need to draft at least one offensive lineman in the top 4 rounds in every draft, just because. So 5 out of your 11 starters are on the offensive line. It seems like they get injured more in any other position, just because
they're the ones that take all the contact. You got to think when you play offense or defensive line, people don't realize that you get hit every single play.
Yeah,
every single play you will receive contact. You play running back, you might not get the ball, you might not get hit. Play wide receiver, not every play is a pass play. Not every cornerback makes a hit. Not every time a D-line or offensive line hit, they're the ones butting heads, and that's why they do get hurt, because for 150 plays out of a game, you are receiving contact, and that's something that it's important for an offensive lineman is playing hurt and playing through injury, because that's what you're supposed to do. But I think that we get a decent. I think we can get some good depth. I don't think there's anything really out there in free agency anymore, but I think we can definitely do something in the maybe 2nd through 4th, 5th round to, maybe get, I would choose at least 1, if not 2 offensive linemen in that range.
Yeah.
Just to see, you plug them in, see what they can do, and let them battle it out.
Yeah. So that's definitely right tackle will definitely be addressed. Now, whether it's addressed in the 1st round with a Juwan Taylor or even Jonah Williams. Jonah Williams kind of intrigues me just because, I hear he's such a student of the game. Like I saw a tweet where apparently before every single game, he would chart the guy that he's going against and put stuff on Excel sheets and stuff like that. I mean, that doesn't scream Tom Coughlin.
He's a football
I don't know
nerd.
what does.
He's a football nerd.
Get an Alabama lineman in here. I mean, you can never go wrong with drafting an Alabama dude.
Someone said Taylor, Ford, or Williams. Williams by far. And I know people talk about how much they like Taylor. And Taylor does have a nastiness to his game, but I think Taylor is very, very similar to Cam Robinson, and that's where they both play with poor leverage.
Yeah.
And people don't realize that because, unless you're truly a student of football and you watch offensive line film, one of the worst things you can do as an offensive tackle is you constantly lean forward when you're firing out, because and they both have the tendency, both Cam Robinson and Taylor both do this, where no matter what the play is, they're constantly off balance. They're always kind of lunging, as opposed to they don't make very good contact sometimes, which is could be a huge issue. It's unfortunate because it's something that they do, I think, too consistently to make that something that you fix easily. I think that you are who you are, and for both of them, I think that that's why he is a right tackle, and he would only be drafted to play right tackle, and that's why I think Cam Robinson needs to move to right tackle.
Yeah, and then I haven't watched too much of Williams, but I've watched about 3 games of Taylor, and one thing I see some good things out of him. Very strong guy. I mean, He's dominant in the run game. I think he's very smart, very instinctive. I mean, he recognizes things immediately. Like if he's lined up on a right tackle, he's supposed to guard this, block this outside linebacker. He sees him drop back. He immediately knows, okay, this is my guy to go to now. When he has to do combo blocks, he knows the exact time when to release to the next guy. I think he's pretty good on an island when it comes to, one-on-one kind of coverage. But some things that I don't like about him, I think he plays with a super high pad level, which, if you do something like that, it's very easy for someone to get leverage on you. Then once once the guy has you beat, they can throw you left, right, whatever. And, you can get – a lot of times he gets away with that in college. I mean, he'll stand tall and just hold people up there just because he's such a big and powerful dude. But, I mean, NFL, man, if you're going against a J.J. Watt or
Nick Ngakoue.
Yeah, some of the guys in our division, I mean, it's not going to work. And
no. And that a lot of people don't realize that is you really have to study these players and who they play against and where their dominance is coming from.
Yeah.
Because Florida, they play a Mississippi State, and they play Ole Miss and Vanderbilt and Arkansas. Those are not teams with top tier talent. Most of those players, you got to remember, there's only 200 and something people being drafted. Period. There's only X amount of roster spots. A lot of those players that they're playing against will not be playing in the NFL. So yeah, when you're playing against, a former 3-star recruit who is not nearly as big and strong as you, and you can just straight up use poor technique and just outstrength him and hold your ground against, an average player at best, cool. Yeah, you do look dominant. But what's going to happen when you play against top tier? What do you do against Alabama? That's the big question. And I hate to say that because as a UCF guy, Alabama drives me crazy. But I would want to see how are you constantly playing against an Alabama, a Georgia. Put on the tape for that and see how he's playing against that talent. And if he's doing the same thing, which I'll admit, I've only watched maybe of his 5 games. When I get bored, I've watched not 5. I'm sorry. Of the Florida games, I only really watched 5 games of film on him just to see how he was, and that's what jumped out to me is he wasn't playing against the best talent, and I think that he had poor technique and XYZ. But I'll digress from that because we've kind of harped on the offensive line for a while.
And then one thing I do want to say, one more thing that does kind of because he's a potential pick at number 7, so I feel like we got to discuss him a little bit. But one thing that does kind of worry me, and it's something that we can't really speculate on just because it's not on film, but I hear he's got a little bit of maturity and discipline issues.
Yeah, like a lot of people that come from Florida.
But that scares me because we've had guys like Dante Fowler. We have Leonard Williams. No, Leonard Fournette. I was like, Leonard, who is it? I was like, we have Leonard Fournette on the team right now, and then it just.
I wouldn't mind having Leonard Williams right now.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna lie, we almost did.
I was like, it drives me nuts. And then I don't want a guy that's going to be getting in trouble. That's showing up out of shape and stuff like that. I don't want that. You know what I mean? And especially when you compare, it almost seems like Taylor and Jonah Williams. I mean, Jonah Williams almost seem like complete opposites the way they do things. But I mean, that's kind of a lot of offensive line talk. We'll go ahead and go to the defense. So we'll go and start the defensive line. Now, the defensive line is a unit that you can never have enough players on because, if everybody stays healthy in one game, you're going to have more defensive linemen play than you have starters at the other position because you're always cycling guys in and out. I mean, in an ideal world, every single defensive lineman gets the same amount of snaps just because you got to have them rotating in and out.
You want them fresh. You want them firing off the ball. Yep.
Yeah, so you got to do all that. And then, any position is open for the Jaguars right now. I mean, obviously at the interior right now, some of your high press guys, you have Avery Jones, you have Marcel Darius. Now you have Taven Bryan, who's going to move on the inside. On the outside, you have Yannick Ngakoue, you have Calais Campbell, you have DeJuan Smoot. So there definitely seems like there's probably a need at defensive end. Maybe get a high level guy, and also maybe even in the later rounds get a defensive tackle. So what are your thoughts on those units overall?
I think defensive line is our strength. I think that depth is, obviously a factor because we've been very lucky to have Yannick has not really been hurt and hasn't really missed any time. Calais, since we took him, has been, great the last 2 years. Darius, consistently plays every year, most games. And they're all, and Aubrey Jones is I thought he was going to be our starting nose until we got Darius, but Aubrey Jones is a good rotational nose tackle. Brian, he's a big question mark, so we'll see how he's going to play. I have faith that he'll be a pretty solid player. Smoot is I had us cutting Smoot last offseason, and somehow now he's in the discussion of being one of our top 3 ends. So I think that we have some solid players in D-line, but there's nothing wrong with adding depth. Would I add depth at 7 this draft? I think that's a very Coughlin thing to do, and it bothers me only because I think that there's other needs that would be more impactful to our team immediately. And, I hate to say that it's not all about doing stuff, for the immediate return. You want to think about the long-term longevity of your franchise. And obviously Campbell's not going to be here forever, but yeah, that's kind of where I'm at is it's if we took a defensive end or, an Ed Oliver or a Quentin Williams type player in the first, at that 7 pick, I wouldn't be mad because I'd be ecstatic to have a player of that caliber on our line. Would it get me? But at the same time, it's not what I want. Yeah. So it'd be a very Jaguars thing to do.
Yeah. I mean, I'll say this: if we're sitting at number 7 and Quentin Williams or something like that somehow falls, I mean, I love Quentin Williams.
Yeah,
man.
He's a monster.
He's whether it's run plays, whether it's rushing the passer. I mean, this guy is like Aaron Donald, and it's just he never has any off plays. I mean, it's so exciting, and if you get a guy like that, I mean, you look at some contracts coming up. Like Marcel Darius, the way they restructured his contract, he's owed 18, he's 18 plus million against the cap next year. So it's really they restructured it to keep him on for another year before they cut him, and then you're gonna have to have guys come in and fill in there. So like number 7, I mean, it's definitely a position that they may consider at number. Like when I look at it, like I think the Jaguars rather going, tight end with Hawkinson, offensive tackle with Jonah Williams or Jawan Taylor, or they're going to go defensive line. Whether it be like maybe Montez Sweat might be there, even though he's got that weird heart thing. You hear about Rashawn Gary, you hear Ed Oliver still climbing up some of the boards. So I mean, all these guys could be potentially there, but I mean, man, like I would just rather offense and see if you can fill in some defensive line later on.
Yeah, defense is one. I mean, we have in my opinion, a top 5 defense in the NFL already. Let alone you add more talented. Not defense wins championship is a very, very good adage, but it's really hard to that playoff run. It's really difficult when your defense is winning you games. You need to be able to produce. We invested in a quarterback finally. I mean, I want to say finally because I think Blake gave us a couple good years with what he could do, and you pour money into Foles expecting him to elevate your team. So if you're gonna do that, I think you need to give him the tools to do that.
Give him weapons, man.
Exactly. Yeah. So someone mentioned we're going to get to more positions. So defensive line. There's some great talent on the defensive line. But with that said, there's also talent and depth. There's some great players that because you have a Sweat or an Oliver or a Williams, that some of those other players that would be top 15 draft picks any other year are going to slide into other places. So maybe you get some really good players, later in the second. I would not be upset if we took like a defensive end or something like that in the second or third round.
Yeah. So I think there, like I said, like with offensive line, I think you got to get an offensive lineman somewhere in the top 4 or 5 rounds. I think the same thing with defensive line. I mean, you kind of rotate these guys in and out now. Where we pick one, we're not sure yet. But now we'll move on to the next position, and that's linebacker. So right now, we play a lot of nickels. So about 70% of the time, you have the weak side linebacker and middle linebacker out there. So that's usually Telvin Smith and Miles Jack. Mm-hmm. We bring in this guy, Jake Ryan, from Green Bay. And I didn't know much about him, but I looked at, his career. And I mean, he's had a lot of experience. I mean, he's started a lot of games. He's had over 100 career tackles. So, this isn't a very popular opinion. I said this in my last video, but especially with what Telvin Smith's doing right now, where first of all, he came off a bad year where he was a liability in pass coverage. He overran a lot of plays. It didn't seem like he was right mentally. And then now he's holding out. He's not going to voluntary workouts, and he's not telling the coaches why he's not going. They could be in a position where, he's a big, high-value guy. We're going to probably want to keep Miles Jack because, I mean, you hear Doug Marrone just speak so highly of Miles Jack, and he's such a good player. And you might not be able to afford 2 linebackers. So there's a chance that, Telvin Smith, I think, may be a draft day trade if they can maybe get, a pick in between the rounds of 3 to 5 for him,
I don't think we'll get a fifth. I don't think we'll get a third. Be honest, I think that because of his contract, he'd be
it's usually a salary dump kind of situation.
I think maybe like a 6th round pick would be what we get for him. But I think that with as poorly as he played last year, which is so unfortunate with as much money as we gave him at the same time, which always seems to be the deal. These guys get these massive contracts and then just underperform. But I think the attitude was a big deal to me. That's a huge deal. I mean, he had an attitude all season. He's having a problem this offseason. You're right. I would rather have Miles Jack on my team for the next 8 years than Telvin Smith for the next 5. So if you need to do something, make the move. And that sucks because I really liked Telvin Smith for a long time. I really did.
He was awesome.
He was awesome for his first 4 years. For the first 4 years where he just was killing it. And it being as undersized as he is, he exceeded expectations. But if you can trade him and somehow get that value of a 5th pick, which you already spent on him, so you're getting that back, and then or maybe even get even a 6th. I wouldn't maybe get rid of him for anything less than that. I mean, I guess if you just cut him though, it's the same thing. At least you're getting a return for him, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, with Telvin, a lot of people in the chat love him. Trust me, I love him just as much as you guys. But NFL's a business, man. So you gotta do what's best for the team right now and going forward. So I mean, other than that, I mean, the Jaguars could use some depth at the position. I mean, they got Leon Jacobs, and it seems like they usually pick up a guy or 2 as the season goes on. Just they've never had the greatest depth at linebacker, but you got to have guys in there contribute to special teams, all that stuff. So we won't touch too much on this, but I mean, I could see the situation where if Telvin Smith is no longer in the team. That'll put Miles Jack to the weak side linebacker spot, which will be his best position. I mean, they played him at strong side, middle linebacker. He's done pretty well there, but really at weak side linebacker, I think he'd be his best. Then you got
that's his natural position from what he played in college. So.
Yeah, then you got a real, leader in Jake Ryan to kind of man the middle of the field. So.
And do we still have Payne, that linebacker from Stetson? Is he still on our roster? How did we get rid of him? I can't remember.
I don't know. I know you're talking about Donald Payne from Stetson.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I always appreciated the fact that he played for Stetson and he was on.
I didn't know they had a football team until they picked him up. And Stetson's about 15 miles north of here. So
yeah,
they did. He was I think the first NFL player to actually.
That's right.
Or first football player from the program to go to the NFL. So all that's pretty interesting. So now moving on from the linebackers. Appreciate everyone sticking with us. We're gonna finish up the positions. Then we're gonna do a little mock draft of the top 10 picks of the draft. So that'll be exciting. Definitely leave a like for us to see 53 people in here. So now we'll move on to the cornerback spot. Obviously at cornerback, you've got the king, Jalen Ramsey. You have former
the Prince.
Yeah, former All-Pro. Pro Bowler AJ Boye from UCF, and you also have at the nickel linebacker spot DJ Hayden. All pretty good players. So, how do you feel about the position overall?
I think cornerback. I mean, you can argue maybe that would be our strength over the D line. I think our starting 3 corners are phenomenal. I think DJ Hayden, who was borderline a bust, being a first round pick to Oakland, and then he comes to and he does what he does here. And I think he was at times better than AJ in the way, because I think nickel is one of those things where as good as slot receivers are today, it's really easy to pick on a bad nickel.
Yeah,
and he held his own. He produced very well for us. He had more interceptions than his predecessor ever did for our team. But I think that it's one of the strongest positions, and I think that maybe something deep in the draft or an undrafted free agent, to add some swag to it. I think that our corners are okay.
Yeah, one thing worth mentioning. Last year, the Jaguars in the 3rd round, they drafted Ronnie Harrison. It was like, that's kind of weird. We're good at safety. Like, why are we doing this? But you kind of look in the future, and you're able to cut an expensive guy like Barry Church. This year it might be a situation where if the value meets the if the position meets the value right there. I mean, we have AJ Boye, who, if we cut him next year, we're saving $11 million. You're going to have to re-sign, Jalen Ramsey to a lot of money. So, I mean, if the draft falls you the way, if there's a guy there, you're like, dude, we have, this is one of our top 40 players on a board. He's fallen to us with, at the end of the 3rd round with our Rams pick, huge value kind of pick. You never know. So,
yeah,
it's definitely a position that we could definitely get. But, in 2019, we have a solid starting crew. So, definitely depth at that position would definitely be big. So, with that said, we'll move on to the safeties. Now, last year we had Deshaun Gibson and Barry Church start at safety for us. None of them are on the team anymore. Barry Church got cut, at the end of the season after he got kind of benched for Ronnie Harrison. He was a healthy scratch, and they're like, you know what? You're not even playing special teams. You have no need, so we'll cut you. Deshaun Gibson, we saved a bunch of money by cutting him, and now we have Jared Wilson started that position. He was actually pretty good last year when he was called upon. So, it's a position I feel comfortable at, but at the same time, if there's a guy there, you can definitely still draft the player.
I really like Ronnie Harrison. I think you keep him a strong safety. Some people are talking about putting him in the center field and letting him play I don't think that's what he did in college. I think he was a good box safety. He's a thumper. He's a thumper. He will hit the living crap out of you. I would keep him in the role that he currently is. I think he's a really good player. I think that we got him for a steal in the 3rd round. I mean, I thought he was an early 2nd round type of caliber player, and we got him well below his value for whatever reason he fell, which is weird because that happens with Bama. I mean, there's another Bama safety coming out this year that could
Deontay Thompson.
Yeah, Deontay Thompson could be a great possible If we took him at 38, I would be 100% okay with that because I think he could be a day 1 starter at free safety. You pair him with his college teammate. I think that could be an amazing play because he could be there early in the 2nd round. I know he's one of the top safeties in the draft, but like you said, Jared Wilson played brilliantly when called upon. Can he sustain that over 16 games? That's to be seen, but I think that he's a good player, and I think that's why they felt comfortable getting rid of
Sean Gibson.
Yeah, because they knew that there was a just as, I wouldn't say just as good a player, but there was a player that was playing at least better than expected, and so let's see how he performs on the field.
And as much as people say, "Oh, Jared Wilson, like what has he done?" At the same time, like you can't be perfect at every position.
No,
you know what I mean. I mean, you got salary cap stuff. You got to hit on your draft picks. I mean, the ideal thing is that you hit on every single draft pick, and you're only re-signing the quarterbacks and the cornerbacks and the left tackles, the real like premier positions. So that kind of wraps up kind of what our viewpoints are of each position group.
Wait, we're not going to talk about punters and kickers.
We're good there. We re-signed Josh Lambo to like a 2-year deal or something.
I love a fresh Lambo.
Did you see the Jaguars video, the schedule release video?
Good. It was.
Look at Josh.
That was so funny. He is. It's like we have back-to-back kickers that like embody Jacksonville. I think Lambo is amazing. I love him. I think that the fact when he kicked that game winner against San Diego, I could not be any happier for that man. He is a great guy. He's great in the community, and he's a great kicker. He's got a great leg.
The flow.
He's got swag to him. He's hysterical. I'm glad he's our kicker.
They're both the Joshes, Josh Scobie and Josh Lamb, are like the anti Jason Myers. Jason Myers is.
Which, can we talk about how much it pisses me off that Jason Myers goes to New York and becomes a Pro Bowl kicker?
What's funny is he goes to New York, becomes a Pro Bowl kicker, and doesn't even get re-signed.
Oh, that's right.
I think the Seahawks went signed him back up again. Yeah. The Seahawks cut him in the preseason. He goes on and goes into a Pro Bowl year, and they're like, you know what? You can come on back. But I think it's funny. Like, how do you have a Pro Bowl year and you don't even get re-signed by your team?
I wonder if Lambo has a Lambo. That's an excellent question. We should tweet at him and ask him, do you have a Lambo?
I always thought, like, because I'm thinking about getting a jersey. I think I'm going to get a Nick Foles jersey, but it'd be cool to get a Lambo jersey just because, first of all, I mean, Lambo, I think he'll be with the team for a while. I think it'd be cool to have a Lambo on the back of your jersry.
Oh, no. Actually, my buddy who you met when we went to that Magic game, Steven, he had a Scobie jersey for the longest time. One of the nice – our best generation of jersey.
Scobie's a popular.
Scobie was a solid hipster choice for a jersey. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I got this 59-yard game winner autograph line.
I was there for that. That was a good game.
Yeah, it was. And then punter were set there. Logan Cook, he was a 7th round pick, big boomer of a leg, so that's good.
Oh, he's got a cannon.
So now we're gonna get into our mock draft. We're just gonna do the top 10.
Okay.
Once you get into the kind of later picks, it's all kind of wishy-washy. But first overall, I have the Cardinals taking Kyler Murray. I mean, that's been a talk the whole entire offseason. And usually what happens is a couple weeks leading up to the draft, they're like, oh, this might not happen, guys. This may not happen. But, they don't have to hide their hands. I mean, I think Kyler Murray, pair him up with Cliff Kingsbury on that offense. I think that's going to be the pick. And I think Kyler Murray is going to be really good. I mean, incredibly accurate. I know he's a little bit small, but I think he's going to be a good player.
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to try to go a different route just for the sake of entertainment here.
Do it.
And I'm going to say that they do not go quarterback, that all of this has been smokescreen, and they choose Nick Bosa, defensive in Ohio State, as their first pick.
I like it. I'm about to say they've lost a lot of different players of free agency and stuff like that. They just brought in Terrell Suggs, which is interesting. He leaves his team, but he's going to go with Nick Bosa there. So now the 49ers on the clock. The typical pick here is Nick Bosa. But my favorite player, non-quarterback in this draft, is Quinnen Williams. And when I compare the two, I just think that, Nick Bosa, both the Bosa brothers, they have kind of a history of injury. Obviously, Nick Bosa ended his Ohio State career injured, and he wound up pulling out and just start focused on his NFL career. And when you look at the general manager, John Lynch, he's a guy that understands how important a really good defensive tackle is. I mean, he's a guy that won the Super Bowl with Warren Sapp on the Buccaneers. He's a guy that in the same division as Aaron Donald. I think Quinnen Williams is a safe pick here, and I think the 49ers are going to go Quinnen Williams.
I'm going to say the same thing, only because, they took Solomon last year, a defensive end from Stanford.
Yeah.
And
2017 they took him.
Oh, 2017. Okay, so you got Stanford. You got the Stanford defensive end. So I don't think they go outside rusher. Because of that, they have a marquee player there. I think inside,
and they got DeForest Buckner the year before that.
So I think that you go inside and have a player like a Quinnen Williams that will go next to someone like Buckner. That could be a stud, and then you arguably have the best defensive line in the NFL in terms of just pure talent. Because mean, DeForest Buckner's a monster. I really liked that. I really liked Solomon as a player. I mean, I thought, to be honest, he was talked about as possibly being one of our picks, 2 years ago. And so I think that they go Quinnen Williams, and that defensive line is beefed up. They don't have to worry about quarterback. They've got a great tight end. They've got pretty solid receivers. I mean, I think that defensive line, as deep as this draft is the pick for them.
Yeah, then the 49ers like their big guys, man. I mean, they went, DeForest Buckner. Then they went Solomon Thomas, and last year they went Mike McGlinchey. So, they like their big guys. So now moving on to the Jets at number 3. The Jets, I thought it really sucked for them that they lost Anthony Barr, because I think it puts them in a position where they kind of had to get an edge rusher. I mean, they've been looking for an edge rusher forever. So I'm going to have them taking Nick Bosa and being very, very happy with Nick Bosa. Although I do think Nick Bosa would be better in a 4-3 defense. He's going to move to a 3-4 defense.
Yeah.
And, I think he's going to be a good player.
So since I already have Nick, so again, on my bet board compared to you, I got Nick Bosa. I've got Quinnen Williams. I think here at this spot, you've got the Jets. But 2 of the premier defensive linemen are off the board. They want out. They're going to say, how can we get a haul and move out? And so I'm going to have a trade alert.
Oh, snap. Trade alert.
Trade alert. I say from number 15, Washington.
Damn, Washington moving up.
Washington jumps up and gets their quarterback of the hopeful future to compete with Alex Smith, and takes at number 3 overall Kyler Murray from Oklahoma.
Kyler Murray.
So I think that's the first big huge shake-up trade. Everybody's devastated because you've got the Raiders sitting there staring at this guy following at him, and they're like, "Oh my God, we're gonna get a quarterback." And I think that's a team like a Washington goes up there and snags them.
Yeah, and Jets are want to trade back so bad. Hell, they might just take a 3rd-round pick for it. No, seriously, it's like that's going to be at least a 1st-round pick, and they're going to have to get some bonus picks along there. But I mean, Jets definitely sound open to them. They got plenty of holes that they need to fill, and they can go back there and still get maybe a Cody Ford or a Jonah Williams or a Dalton Risner, maybe still a good offensive lineman to kind of come in there. So. With that said, I mean, we're going against the grain here. Now we got the Raiders at number 4. Now the Raiders, they got Mike Mayock in there. They have no scouts in the building. I think it's kind of interesting because you almost wonder, do they have a quarterback that they want to pick? And they're all they're not trying to have teams jump in front of them. I don't know, but I mean, Mike Mayock, he's a good GM. I mean, I shouldn't. We don't know that yet, but
we'll find out.
I know. He was my favorite. Draft kind of guru
by far.
Yeah,
he's phenomenal. I think he's gonna. I think he's gonna do a good job.
So I think with them losing Khalil Mack last year, I think their pass rush is horrible. I think they go with the best pass rusher on the board, and that is defensive end / outside linebacker from Kentucky, Josh Allen.
Okay, I think that's a very solid pick.
Thank you. I think so myself.
I think the same. In the situation where you see Kyler Murray is not the first pick, and he drops down 2 slots, and you think he's chomping at the bit, I don't think they would trade with the Jets to move up a spot. I think they would just wait to see, because you still have a Derek Carr at quarterback, and you see how he's going to perform next year. I think at this spot they do exactly the same. I think that you get rid of a generational, if not maybe possibly one of the greatest pass rushers of all time in Khalil Mack. You trade him away. You need something to fill that void. And I think based on what you just said, with the 2 players off the board, who they were, and I personally don't think Nick Bosa is a 3-4 type defensive end or outside linebacker. I think he's a 4-3 hand in the dirt kind of end player. I think you go for a athletic type play like a Josh Allen, who can play either at that outside linebacker spot or play with his hand. He can effectively do both, because he's just that kind of freak athlete. I think he's very, very similar to Khalil Mack. I don't think he's going to beat Khalil Mack, but I do think that he has got those kind of traits to it. And so I think 4th overall, just like you, I'll say Josh Allen is the pick.
All right. So next on the clock, we had the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So with the Buccaneers, man, I mean, they got Bruce Arians. They got a lot of good coaching staff. I mean, they have Bruce Arians who can take nothing and turn them into something. I mean, look at the Cardinals did without them. I mean, they've always been pretty good with Bruce Arians and stuff like that. And then once he left, they move all the way down to number 1 overall pick. So they also have Todd Bowles back there, the defense coordinator, Byron Leftwich, future head coach, coaching the offense out there. And, I think they're a team that always has a good linebacker. I think they're going to take Devin White from LSU. And Devin White reminds me a lot of the former LSU player, and that's Jamal Adams. Like, they just love the game of football. I mean, Devin White was legitimately thinking about coming back to LSU just so he could try to win a national championship.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And he's a guy that, unlike Greedy Williams and a couple other players, he actually played in a bowl game. I think Devin White, just tremendous athlete. He's going to be a sideline linebacker in an NFL that's just getting faster and faster every year. You're going to have guys that's able to cover a tight end, cover slot receivers, but also be able to tackle running backs and stuff like that in there. So I'm going to have the Bucs picking up Devin White from LSU.
I'm going to actually, and I've said personally for months now that I thought Devin White was a Tampa Bay player because he's kind of in that same mold as like a, oh God, what his name is slipping me. And it
was he on the Bucs?
Yes.
Derek Brooks.
Derek Brooks. I mean, like you just said, they've always had great linebackers from the '90s all the way to today. They've had at the very bare minimum an above average linebacking core. And I think that Devin White's a player that at 5 is tremendous value. He can play outside. He can play inside. He's smart. He's got more heart than I got to watch him in the Fiesta Bowl, and he's a monster. He's an absolute beast. So I think that he goes number 5. I think that's I think all the other picks can be shaken up. To me, the lock spot would be Devin White at number 5. Yeah. And I think it would be hysterical if I was proven wrong. But yeah, I think that Devin White's taking number 5 overall.
All right, so next up on the clock, we have the Giants at number 6. And really the Giants, I feel like there were so many, smoke springs being up about them at quarterback at the beginning. Mm-hmm. And, you heard about them being linked to, Russell Wilson and, and Josh Rosen. And, apparently they had a source come out there saying that they really liked the Daniel Jones guy. They really like Drew Lock. But I think they're just trying to hide who they really want and not have a team trade up over them to get this guy. And I think they get Dwayne Haskins. And even someone said, I think the coach even said that, Dwayne Haskins doesn't fit our system. Yeah. Yeah. And Eli Manning does fit your system. I mean, I think Dwayne Haskins will be on the Giants when it's all said and done. And, I think he's going to be a really good quarterback.
I think there's going to be a good quarterback, but I don't think the Giants take him. I have a gut feeling that we'll see what Gettleman does. I mean, I think he's been changing. I mean, you take a quarterback and who's his quarterback going to throw to now? You know what I mean? He got rid of one of the best wide receivers in the NFL, if not maybe one of the best in the last at minimum decade. So I think that they go Jonah Williams here at number 6 because at least if you're going to continue to have old man Manning trying to perform and do something for you, they're going to put somebody, at least to his blind side, protect his behind, make sure he stays upright because he's been put on the dirt a lot in his career. I'll give it to Manning. The man, I mean, he was coming. He was chasing the record for a long time until he was benched and then didn't have that start. That consecutive starts, which I thought was completely crap.
Geno Smith. Yeah.
So I think that I think Manning stays. I don't think they get a successor yet. I think that'll be next year. And I think that they go with Jonah Williams at number 6 overall.
See, the way I see it, I think it's just I think they're a team that's going to be really set to make a run next year. And because they're going to have a lot of money next year and they obviously have a lot of draft picks this year. So I think they need to go ahead and get their quarterback. They need to ease them in maybe 5-6 games into the season, bring him in here, or even sit a whole year with, behind Eli Manning, because the last 2 quarterbacks that's really first round quarterbacks that's really sat a whole entire year, Aaron Rodgers and Patrick Mahomes. So pretty good track record. But I mean, I just think that, if you can have a second year quarterback ready to go, in 2020 after you get all these draft picks accumulated and you're really set to make a run in the NFC East. So, I think if they want a quarterback, they'll take him at 6. I don't think they wait till 17 because, you even saw the Browns last year. They had pick number 1 and pick number 4. They weren't messing around to get their guy.
Yeah.
They went ahead and got him. So, yeah, I think Dwayne Haskins is going to be the pick there.
I think if they take Jonah Williams, they take Daniel Jones at number 17.
Yeah. So now we're at pick number 7. That's the We'll skip that one. We'll move. No, I'm joking. we'll go to the Jaguars, man. Pick number 7. I've got a lot of little personal investment in this one, and I want the Jaguars to go T.J. Hawkinson, tight end out of Iowa. What do you think?
I mean, what do I think or what do I want?
What do you want? What do you think?
What do I want? I want Hawkinson. But in my draft, I'm going to say that Hawkinson is not the pick because Jacksonville. I think Jacksonville trades out, New England trades up, and they get TJ. I'm fucking right. That would not.
I was about to say we're going to 32.
We're going. I
don't know if I'm down for that.
New England jumps all the way up, takes TJ.
It's a
flicks off the entire NFL. No, I don't think that's exactly.
It's a trap. You don't trade with the Patriots.
You do not.
They need this. Everyone just needs to agree. Don't trade with the Patriots, guys.
No, I think it's going to break my heart. I don't think we go right tackle either. I think at this position, based on how this is playing out, the pick. Just because it would be the Jacksonville thing to do would be like Ed Oliver from Houston. I think that they would get like a premier, talented defensive lineman, which Ed Oliver I think is that kind of player that can play inside or outside. He is just a great player. And just because it would break my heart, I think that's what they're going to do.
It's amazing to ride with Ed Oliver because, like, in a way too early mock drafts, he's always projected to be like a top 5 pick.
Yeah.
And then he refused to take his jacket off, and somehow he dropped in mock drafts. And then, like, once the combine came around in the pro days, he moved right back up just because
it blows my. I personally thought he was a number 1 overall pick, like a year or two ago, and then suddenly he's just been fluctuating up and down the board. I think that again, would I be mad that we have that all over our team? Absolutely not. I think he would be a great player for us for at least the next 5 to 8 years. But I would prefer if we had TJ Hawk. But just to be different than you, I'm going to say that we take Ed Oliver.
I appreciate that. So now with the Lions at number 8. Speaking of Ed Oliver, I've got the Lions taking Ed Oliver as kind of a best available position type of right there. And they've got Matt Patricia over there. I think they've got a lot of catching up to do in the NFC North because the Packers, the Bears, the Vikings, they're all pretty good teams. They're all going to be competing for playoff spots. The Detroit Lions, I don't know, man. I don't know what direction their team is really going. So I'm just going to go ahead and have them taking Ed Oliver.
I would say this is where I start to also. My gut would say is if we pass on Hawkinson at 7, that he would possibly go at 8 because the Lions let their last good tight end go and do not plays for Indianapolis. And I think that at this point, the problem, though, is that they're letting Ziggy Ansah leave. And so now you have a huge hole on the edge. So I think here would be a position where they would take like a Montez Sweat or Rashad Gary. I would think that a great pick would be Rashad Gary because he obviously played right up the road over in for Big Blue. So I'd say that Detroit goes defensive end to fill that void, which is going to be huge because the fact that they let Ziggy Ansah go is kind of, weird because he's a great player. He produced for him for a long time. So I think they go defensive end as a more immediate need, even though I think tight end, it could be a flip-flop. I think you can take either at that point and they're happy. And I think if Hawkinson was there, I think they'd probably end up doing it because it would be stupid if not. But then at that point, if they don't pick Hawk, maybe you trade up or you just let, someone like Irv Smith or Noah Fant or somebody fall to them a little bit later.
Yeah, Montez Sweat has been falling lately just because I guess
the heart
I guess it was a hard thing. But I was thinking this today, I'm like, every year you have players that fall because, like last year, like with the Maurice Hurst and just different players fall because of their internal conditions. But I never hear years later, oh, this guy had to retire because his heart hurt or his pancreas came back. And every year you have these players fall. Even Miles Jack. The only reason we have Miles Jack is because apparently some kind of knee thing that they're worried about. Oh, he hasn't missed a game.
No, he tore his knee up in college, and I think that it's a huge, not every player you get, no matter what, has had an injury at some point in his career. It's just, I think it's asinine to think that a great player, just because of a simple heart palpitation, whatever it might be. I know it's not that serious. I think people overthink it and they get nervous because it's a huge investment. You're going to be putting a top 10 pick into someone. You want to know that they're going to do something for your franchise, and there's not the chance that maybe they end up either retiring early, like a Patrick Willis or something like that just kind of turns their back on you and walks away because of future health issues or something. I don't know, but I can see where everyone else is coming from. It's kind of a scary thing when you have that high of a pick.
Yeah, we'll see. So now at pick number 9, the Bills are on the board. I have them taking right tackle to Florida, Jawan Taylor. They spent a bunch of money this offseason, short of a bunch of different needs, but they got to protect Josh Allen. Their offensive line hasn't been very good in a while, so I'm just going to have them taking Jawan Taylor at number 9.
I would go the same. I would actually pick the same thing. I think offensive line would be the way to go. They have who they perceive as their quarterback in the future. They have a decent tackle prospect that falls to them at 9. And I think that's not a bad spot. I don't think Jawan Taylor is a top 8 pick. I think anywhere from 9 to 15 is a solid range for him to get picked up in. So I said that they take tackle because you have a good spot there, and they go from there.
Oh yeah. So now we have pick number 10, the Broncos. Really interesting spot for them. They're John Elway just can't hit on a quarterback. I mean, besides getting Peyton Manning, that was more of a sales pitch rather than actual scouting. They've missed on guys like Osweiler. They went and signed Case Keenum to a good amount of money. They drafted Paxton Lynch in the first round. But you hear a lot about Drew Lock to them, and I think a lot of times where there's smoke, there's fire, and I think that that Drew Lock's going to be the pick for the Broncos right here.
I think so too, because I think you have a front office guy like Elway, who's obviously a Hall of Fame quarterback, who's struck out. If you think about it, he struck out like on everything quarterback related, except for Peyton Manning.
And Peyton Manning was more of a sales pitch.
Exactly. Hey, come win a Super Bowl. Look at all the talent we have a great defense. You can
because
really
Peyton Manning, when he went around, he was literally interviewing the other coaches. Like
exactly.
They said when they walked away from them, they're like, he just interviewed us. You know what I mean?
But when you're a player like Peyton Manning's caliber, I mean, that's who it is. So I agree. I think that they don't have a quarterback of the future. I think Case Keenum is unfortunately a stopgap kind of guy. And I think that they would go.
Well, they traded for Joe Flacco.
Oh, that's right. Sorry. Yeah, Keenum's. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Keenum's gone
because he was a stopgap guy. They get rid of his butt. And even Flacco. I mean, who do you have in Flacco?
According to John Elway, he's still in his prime.
No, he's not.
Did you hear him say that?
It was.
Flacco.
He won a Super Bowl in what 2013.
Yeah, he had an incredible run. He actually had a really good playoff run.
He had a great playoff run.
He was brilliant.
His regular season was eh. He hasn't done anything since then. They gave him a ton of money. I think didn't they give him close to like $100 million or something like that? They gave him a ridiculous amount of money. He hasn't done anything. He's just so blah. Whenever you watch him in interviews and stuff, he just comes off so just bland.
Yeah, he looks like a Muppets character. But yeah,
I think that they go for the quarterback of the future. To be honest, I think if they draft someone like a Drew Lock, that I think that he would get beat out. I don't think that Flacco would actually start. I think they would give the rookie a run at it. So I think that because of the failure of who Elway has gone after in the past, other than Manning's the only anything. And like you said, it was a simple sales pitch of we'll give you as much money as you want. You can do whatever you want. Just tell us what you want.
Yeah, and we play the Broncos, I think, 4th game of the year. So hopefully Joe Flacco's starting because we always do really good against Joe Flacco.
Yes.
So, I mean, last time we played him, I think, was in London when he threw for like we scored more points than he had passing yards. It was like something ridiculous. So.
Jacksonville Jaguars. And, oh, my God, why Mercedes Lewis.
Yeah.
That's a great
Jones Drew.
Jacksonville Jaguars, Mercedes
and
Lewis.
The girl just laughs. The next thing you know, he has like 3 touchdown catches.
That was such a good moment. That made me so happy.
Dude, it was insane. And that Cole Farley guy made that funny.
Yeah, that was great.
It's a shame his Twitter account got suspended.
But. I know, yeah. Also, yeah, if you're watching this, go follow Cole Fartley. I think now it's Cole Shartley. I think is what he changed his name is.
I think it's Cole Fartley 2 or something. I think he changed it again.
Okay. Well, go look him up. Great follow for Jacksonville. Always has maybe not like the most insightful stuff, but always a funny guy to watch. And unfortunately, I don't even know what the hell happened. Do you? What was it? Copyright
I think
stuff?
Copyright something.
So he lost his account, even though he had thousands of followers and made some great stuff, but they deleted his account.
Hopefully he still makes them because I could see him being, not very after losing everything.
Yeah, he might be a little more conservative, but he's a good Jacksonville follow. I'll definitely say. I'm a good Jacksonville follow. He's a good Jacksonville follow. We're all good
man.
follows.
All our links are down below, man. Definitely hit us with a follow. If you ever have any questions, definitely reach out to us because I know I'm always responding to people. I'm always want to tweet about the Jaguars. I always just have Jaguar thoughts in my head. So that's a great thing about Twitter. It's something that
Twitter. Oh yeah, and Jags Twitter's a good time.
Yeah, Jags Twitter's always fun.
Oh yeah.
But hey guys, I appreciate everyone for joining, man. Appreciate my guy James joining in here for this live stream. Went on a little bit longer than I thought we would, but I mean it's always fun to talk about the Jaguars.
Yeah,
but hey man, appreciate you
coming
in here. All right, y'all. Peace.
Deuces.